Okay, so now for something a little bit different than what we've heard so far. So what I'm interested in is understanding how we can improve detection of cancer, in this case, breast cancer. So breast cancer is a very prevalent cancer, especially in women. 1 in 8 women will get breast cancer in their lifetime. But there's good news. 99% of women that have cancer detected early on will survive at least 5 years after the diagnosis. That's why we have screening programs. Breast screening program is one of the widest used in the Western world. There's others too, because they make a difference. They make a difference. Screening, early screening has saved, reduced the mortality rate from 20 to 35%, and it's made a huge difference. The problem is screening, and especially mammography, has many problems still to solve. One of them being that we miss 30% of the cancers are missed regularly. Even up to 50% are missed depending if the severity of the cancer or the age of the woman, okay? That's not just the missed cancers. There's the problem that about 4 million women a year get this bad news that they have cancer, and biopsies are taken, even surgical interventions are made, and it's a false alarm. There was nothing there. So there's a big problem between, misses, what we call, and these false alarms. They're both aggravating for women or for patients that have them. So how do we go about solving this? There is computer-aided detection systems already for 10 years have been used. The problem with them is that they're not as good as people. People are better, okay? Especially with very hard cancers to find. So let's go back. My approach is to go and look at how is it that radiologists do this? How can they detect cancer so well? So I'm coming as a vision scientist, coming from the point of basic science, and what I want to introduce to you is this concept often that all of us use every day, every second, is the perception of gist that we do seamlessly and unconsciously. So to kind of explain to you what gist is, let me have you experience gist. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to flash a series of images, show you a movie, and I want you to clap when you see a gorilla, okay? Ready? Here we go. Yeah, pretty good. That was amazing. If I flash these even faster, this was really slow for a human visual system, 100 milliseconds per image. That's nothing. We can do this in 13 milliseconds. And we do this seamlessly all the time, right? This is the strength of the visual system. This type of processing, what you've just experienced, is called gist, what we refer to as gist processing, the ability to make a decision, categorize an image in a fraction of a second without location information, but without conscious access to how you've done it, right? But we know that this system is based on a series of different processes our system is basically developed to do, and that is extract the summary statistics, global image structure and statistics, textures, and just idiosyncratic features. It's a very powerful system, and we use it, as I said, every day. Crossing a street, this is what you do. Deciding, are you going to pick up a glass or not, this is what you do. So now the question is, how does this translate into medical image perception? Well, here how it does. You would ask yourself, well, if we have this system, all of us, is it possible that you could use this system to tune it to very artificial scenes, like in this example, mammograms? Do experts, when they view these images, get the sense of the gist too? So we started this because while I was doing my postdoc at Harvard, talking to radiologists, they would often say, you know what, when I just look at an image, I just know it. And we call this the force. There's a certain generation that does that. And it's just kind of, well, how do you do this? It's like, we just have the force, I just have the force that we can do this. So we tested this to see if, it is just wishful thinking or they had the force. And a very simple paradigm, we would flash a mammogram, bilateral mammogram, mask it, and then ask them to rate how likely they would call it. They thought it was mumbo jumbo, obviously, because they thought, no way that I'm going to diagnose people like this. It's true. However, they perform significantly above chance. They have no idea where the abnormality is, but they can detect that there's something wrong. What is interesting about this signal, that's why we're relating it to GIST, that they have no access to the location. So it isn't a salient feature that's getting them. It is not density that is defining this signal. It is not the symmetry of the two breasts that's responsible for it. It seems to reside in very fine detail, high spatial frequencies. And what's more, what makes it really amazing is that you can show a section of the breast to a mammographer that does not have a lesion. Actually, it's from a breast that's contralateral to the breast with a lesion, and they will detect that there's something wrong there. So no lesion there, but they're detecting that it is from a breast with cancer, which is quite amazing. This is not just for mammograms. We've done this with other medical images. We've done this with pathologists looking at micrographs too. Completely different image, same signal, right? Why you should care? Well, you should care because we found out that you can ask radiologists to look at mammograms that have absolutely no visual, no cancer. They were acquired 3 years prior to onset of any cancer, and they false alarm on those same images. So they can see precancerous developments. This is backed up by biology, because if you had the opportunity to have a biopsy from the breast that had no cancer, they will detect that there are cancerous cells happening. The visual system can detect them before any artificial system detect them. The problem is the decision that comes afterwards. Now, this is all in great, and this can improve diagnosis. You can see how this can be used as a biomarker, either integrated into technologies or used as a triage system. It's basically a low-cost, free thing. This is what we do all the time. It's just trusting that signal and understanding it. The problem is the doctors don't know what the signal is. If you ask them, they have no idea what it's based on. So this is where we started off by trying to ask a technology to help us solve this. And so we went to computer science. We went to use AI to try and figure this out and say, well, is this system something that the machine can pick up, this GIST? So we used convolutional neural network, a very well-known convolutional neural network that distinguishes between different types of scenes, since we believe mammogram is nothing else but a complex scene. We trained it on a huge set of natural images, 10 million of them, because these require a lot of training. There's not enough mammographs. And when you train them up, they create these sets of features that then allow them to distinguish between these things. And that's basically, if you look at it, that would be like you and I, a naive observer looking at images and saying, this is a mountain, there's a gorilla, and so forth. So, and then we took off that layer and sent it to medical school. And we showed it our images, knowing the ground truth, and trained it on them, the final layer, which then allowed them, this to create another set of features. And we tested those features using a machine learning classifier to determine, can it detect, is there an abnormality or not? And these are just some graphs. This is a performance of the convolutional neural network. And as Bob has already introduced you to the AUCs, we're plotting AUCs. And as you can see, our convolutional neural network gives very accurate and consistent predictions. What's more, it's very similar to our radiologists. The correlation is about 0.7, okay? And what's important that with this view of training a network, it provides information that is unrelated to low-level features as well as density. However, there's a caveat. It is not good as humans. And not only it's not good as humans, the issue is it's picking up the wrong things. When it makes a mistake, it makes a catastrophic mistake. It will detect cancer where no sane radiologist would say that there is cancer, like, say, outside of the breast, okay? So that is problematic. So obviously, even though it's good, this is not it. It is something more to what humans do. So how do we go about now going the other way around, taking our knowledge, what we know about GIST, and changing the convolutional neural networks so that would use that knowledge of an expert to make a better system? So what we do is use what's called a complex value neural network. The whole point of this network that it uses frequency representations which allow you to use information across the entire image. That's a main characteristic of GIST processing, averaging across the whole display without location information, but an average response. So what we do is we, again, take a pre-trained neural network, we modify it with our new complex valued neural network, and train it on images and get quite good results. For example, we get the network can classify sections into benign and malignant masses with 82% accuracy. It can also segment, which is very important. So not just say there's an abnormality or not, but it can segment the location of the abnormality with about 81.2% accuracy. And this is just training on a very limited DDSM set. We're hoping to have it train on optimum, which is digital set, which is about 80,000 images and should produce better. So what does this new way, a neural network that uses human understanding from visual science of how it should be constructed, do for you? Well, it allows you to build a network, first of all, that can accept multiple views, which means not just one view of the data, but many different ones. This is very important for going beyond mammography, looking at tomography, looking at CT, looking at MRI, where you have volumetric data from different aspects. What it also does, it's easy, because of its structure, it allows for applying on data without pre-processing. Now, that's a little dirty lie that a lot of technical companies don't tell you when they're doing AI, is that there's a lot of pre-processing that happens. And that is the biggest barrier, because they ask, well, which machine have you taken these images on? This is a cross-platform without need for pre-processing. You just put the image in, and it does it. It's a huge advantage. So all of this is great and wonderful. However, this is all in the lab. But what happens in the clinic? Well, in the clinic, things get a little bit more hairier. In the clinic, what we've shown already is that there's this nasty little effect called the prevalence effect. And that happens because people, when these good radiologists are reading radiographs, the prevalence of cancer is actually very small. So it is calculated that less than 1% of the mammograms that are screened yearly will contain cancer. So it's a very hard issue for them, because if it's that rare, radiologists are reluctant to call something that's suspicious a cancer, because they're under the pressure of knowing that if they do, that they're going to provoke trauma, and they know that it's very rare. And even it's at the unconscious level, because they set their criterions to be very conservative to calling back. Because of this low prevalence effect, it's estimated that 10% of cancers are missed due to that. Now, it's something that is unconscious, that is very hard to move and to change. So, and CAD doesn't help, because often radiologists will look at it and look at the CAD and say, you know what, this thing marks for everything. You know, I'm not going to waste my time. This is not, I don't have time for this. And they often don't even turn it on. They keep it turned off, because it marks everything, right? So what is our solution? Well, our solution is to try to make diagnosis obviously more accurate with using this GIST signal, but also to try to tackle this prevalence problem in the clinic, where if you're going to put a CAD system to a clinician, you don't say this is where the cancers are, but you rather do an approach of saying this is the probability or likelihood that there is cancer, and this is where it might be. And this gives them more freedom and maybe actually trusting the CAD system more, and in this way, hopefully raising their criterion to be more liberal and getting rid of the prevalence effect. So to conclude, what is the impact? The impact is we would like to create software that's driven by know-how from science, that will give a possibility of creating a biomarker for early detection, even precancerous states, and interim cancers that can work across different medical image platforms, and very, very much be low cost. So I also want to say that this is a great collaborative work with people from in the local area and across the globe. Thank you very much.